Radio V. Radio in TV. Radio in TV.
Why is a white guy like me co-hosting a black radio show? I think toxic relationships cause you to take poor care of yourself. That if you can recognize danger, if you can pause, if you can take some breaths, refocus, and engage, you might be able to dodge a bullet that you're going to send or coming towards you. One of the things that men don't get is that often women need to vent first to clear their mind. People call me a people hacker. And what that means is for about 40 years I've been hacking into people, trying to figure out what makes them tick. I started out hacking into suicidal people, getting into where they're coming from so that they would not destroy themselves. I started hacking into hostage takers, and I actually trained FBI and police how to get into their minds. Recently I actually hacked into Steve Jobs, so I've been speaking around the world about how do you look out at the world and create a great computer company. But I'm often called on to when awful news happens, and we've had another awful shooting in South Carolina. So I've been on a number of radio shows, and now this one, my favorite one, on how do you hack hatred. And I actually wrote something, and we're going to show that up on the screen. It's at Psychology Today. And one of the things that a lot of shooters have in common is they go through this, and I think it's very relevant as we talk to the black community, and I will tell you why. But what a lot of these shooters have in common is they have some feeling of a perceived injustice. The world has done them wrong, and then they feel humiliated. And then what happens is they isolate themselves. Their imagination gets the better of them, and then they get agitated when they keep dwelling on it and dwelling on it when it's in their mind. And then there's some last straw, and the last straw may be something small. It may be a mother saying, go clean up your room, and then they kill their mother. And then often there's something that lowers the impulse control. So in the case of the shooter in South Carolina, there seems to be some indication that he was taking some sort of drugs, and drugs lower your impulse control. Now, how does this relate to the black community? The black community has felt they have lived with injustice and humiliation for decades. In fact, that's much of all they know. I think the difference why they haven't risen up as violently, even though they get angry, but as violently as some of these shooters, is they're not isolated in that. I mean, they're able to come together and talk to each other and relate to each other about real injustices. And I think what happens is when you get out of your head and you're able to talk to other people, that helps you take your finger off the trigger. But I think here's the key. The key is we need to train professional listeners who can defuse these time bombs, these shooters, because what we hear is that they all had conversations with other people, or people observed them, but people took a don't ask, don't tell approach. Because a lot of times you're afraid to talk to one of these crazy people, because what if they focus on you? What if you say something they don't like? What if they become obsessed with you? So my suggestion is find people in the community, I don't know if it's in the law enforcement community or elsewhere, who are especially skilled in talking people down from the insanity side of and enraged side of the fence to a place where they can do no harm to others and themselves, and make that a one-step mobile app. So when you see it, you press a button, you get someone to talk to this person.
You have a video? Or an article we can...
No, that may be for later about... and the top. Well, I'll just segue to the topic. The topic today is watch what you say out in the world. And the reason for that... now, is that impinging on freedom of speech? Well, consider this. You have control over what you say, but you don't have control over how it's heard. And if the person who's listening to you doesn't know how to use words but offends easily, you say something that inflames them, and they don't have the words to come back with a counter F you and get that off their chest, and they can't talk. What's going to happen is it's going to go into action. And so... and what I would also say to people in terms of freedom of speech, one of the other things, and we may play the video later, is when you put stuff out there, it's forever out there, And you may feel, well, I'm just expressing my freedom of speech. Well, don't expect to get hired by a company who checks your Facebook, which they all do, and they say, this person has no judgment, this person has no restraint, this person we're not going to hire. So it may be great to be able to say what's on your mind and get it off your chest, but when it's out there, other people have the freedom to be as prejudiced and discriminating and judgmental and never hire you because of that. So it's something you've got to keep in mind. This is what your Facebook friend who thinks you're sharing too much on Facebook wants to tell you. You're making an idiot out of yourself. You're being an exhibitionist every time you show these weird pictures, these pictures when you're drunk, and you think you're showing off and you're saying, look at me, look at me. And what happens is when people look at you, they just think you're being foolish. And I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I saw just a whole nother volley of your pictures. Stop it, stop it, stop it. It's not working for you. You're embarrassing yourself. If you like this and you want to see more and hear more, please support my page.
You guys got to support Dr. G. Where can they find that? Those small little micro episodes. Where do they find that?
If you go to Patreon, patreon.com, patreon.com/Dr. Mark Goulston, we're collecting, these are conversation catalysts. The last one was what your teenager who won't talk to you wants you to know. And it's about a teenager who's in a very bad place, maybe could be a shooter. And the idea is you give these to people to see if you can start a conversation. That's why we call them conversation catalysts. And and in the next one, we have another one coming up. What your workaholic dad who blew it wants you to know. And that's about a dad who at the end of his life said, I didn't focus on what was important to me, and as a result, I don't know my family doesn't know me, and the only kind of love I have in the world is the love you buy, and it wasn't worth it.
Wow.